So good evening, everybody. I'm glad you could join us today for the unveiling webinar for BCAMP, which is the Benicia Community Air Monitoring Program. My name is David Lindsay, and I'm the board president of BCAMP. And tonight we want to tell you all about our air monitoring station and the website, which posts real-time data on pollutant levels, as well as providing other community resources. We have a panel ready to share details of our setup and talk about how it fits into regional and national networks. So our mission, simply put, is to continuously measure air quality and share the data with the community. First, some housekeeping. This Zoom meeting is in webinar format, so that means that the attendees, you're muted and your video is shut off, but you do have, we want to hear from you. We want to hear questions if you have them. So there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen that you can press to enter your questions, and then we'll have a Q&A session where we can unmute you if to do it verbally later at the end of the evening. So before we move to board introductions, our treasurer, Kathy Carriage, will give you some background information about how BCAMP came to be. Kathy?
Thanks, David. So BCAMP is a nonprofit, and we've been established for the benefit of the community to measure the ambient air in Benicia. And as David said, our mission is to sample and measure local air in real time, and then report that data and archive that data on our website, and also to provide education on health risks as related to air quality. Now, people have been working to get a community air monitoring program in Benicia for literally years and years. So this is the fruition of a lot of effort on the part of local people. The funding for this for BCAMP, though, came directly from the Good Neighbor Steering Committee as a result of the amendment to the Vallejo Good Neighbor Steering Committee agreement, which was approved by the City Council in 2019. And that dispersed of all of the remaining money from the Vallejo Good Neighbor Steering Committee agreement. Our station doesn't have anything to do with the recent abatement action between Vallejo and the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, other than really pointing up the need that this is very timely, that we are getting a completely independent air monitoring program. And I just want to emphasize that BCAMP is independent, and we are run for the benefit of the community, and everything that we do will be public. David.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Now each board member is going to introduce themselves. And as I said before, my name is David Lindsay. I'm serving as board president. And we're going to each talk a little bit about our background and then why volunteering for BCAMP is important to each of us. And so I'm a retired chemical engineer. I worked for 40 years in the petroleum refinery industry. I'm an enthusiastic hiker and backpacker. And I'm really glad that now that I'm retired, I have more time to do both of those. I've served on the Benicia's Community Sustainability Commission for 4 years, and 2 years of that I was chair of that commission. I currently volunteer for Solano Land Trust, working on habitat restoration. So why was I excited to join this effort? I feel strongly that all of us have a right to know what is in our air that we all breathe. You can't control what you don't measure. By providing an independent source of information, BCAMP is a unique asset for our community. Okay, now I'd like to introduce Kathy Carriage again, our board treasurer. Go ahead, Kathy.
Hi, thanks, David. I'm a retired attorney and elementary school teacher, and I've been on the Good Neighbor Steering Committee for years. I'm a former member and also chair of the Benicia Community Sustainability Commission. I'm very active right now in 350 Bay Area Action, which works on climate change, and Airwatch Bay Area, which you'll hear about later. Very active locally in the Democratic Party. I love to garden. I have 14 fruit trees in my yard. But one of the main reasons right now that I'm really active with this organization, concerned about our air, is that I have a 3-year-old grandson who lives near the refinery. You can see the stacks from the playground that he plays in. So this has taken on a real personal meaning for me. Nancy Lund is our secretary, and she'll be speaking next.
Thank you, Kathy. I have a background in the arts. I have a Bachelor of Music from the San Francisco Conservative Music, as well as a Master of Arts in Psychology with an emphasis on educational research. Growing up, I spent many summer vacations on Sierra Club base camp trips to the Sierra. Since then, I have backpacked, skied, climbed, and run in California, Oregon, Washington, British Columbia, and Hawaii. Being outdoors has given me an appreciation of nature and the benefits of clean air and water. My involvement with the GNSC and BCAMP has been a way in which I can contribute to the health and safety of the Benicia community. Just a couple of fun facts about my current activities. One of my favorite sports is long-distance cycling. I've ridden from the Seattle to Portland, a 200-mile ride in 2 days, multiple times. I've done the San Francisco LA ride and have participated in many charitable rides in the Bay Area. To keep fit, I ride an average of 100 miles a week. Next up is Bart Sullivan, another board member.
Thank you, Nancy. Appreciate it. Hello, I'm Bart Sullivan. After working as an electrical engineer for a number of years, I changed my career to patent law. So I currently work as a patent attorney for a multinational software company in San Francisco and also a special effects movie production company in New Zealand. So I'm being very fortunate to have this great technology to work on. On the side, though, I'm a professional guitarist with Nubo Flamenco being my main focus. I'm the president of the Venetian Performing Arts Foundation, which is a local nonprofit dedicated to supporting the performing arts, especially supporting young professional performers. I'm also a board member of the Progressive Democrats of Benicia. My wife, Susan, who many of you know as was the principal of Mary Farmer, and I have 3 wonderful granddaughters. She was the former principal. I joined BCAMP to help protect the health of my family and community. And one of the first jobs as electrical engineer was working in the petroleum industry. My passion to help protect the environment and community started during a meeting about an Indonesian refinery project that I was part of. I noticed that we had not put pollution scrubbers on the project as we did in other U.S. plants. So I asked the project lead, why are we not using pollution scrubbers to treat the discharge into the atmosphere, especially since we are located right next to the rainforest? Project lead told me there was no regulation or local requirement to do so. Therefore, since the scrubbers were expensive, they were not included in the project. So I left the company shortly after that. And after that experience, I'm happy to be part of BCAMP to help hold local polluters accountable and to help our community be safe. Now, I'd like to introduce you to board member Marilyn Barty.
Many of you may know me. I've been in Benicia for 34 years, and I have been active as a local civic and environmental activist for protection of our community's health and safety and community sustainability for all of those years. I'm a board chair of Sustainable Solano, a nonprofit that grew out of Benicia Community Gardens, which we started way back in 2000. I'm a founding member of the Good Neighbor Steering Committee, formed in 2000, as well as a Citizens Refinery Watchdog group when Vallejo took over the Exxon refinery. I'm also a member of Venetians for a safe and healthy community. I've helped lead challenges to planning decisions and ill-conceived development projects proposed by Koch Industries and Vallejo, and have actively participated to address EPA-led investigations for cleanup of toxic landfill sites in Benicia, including former military sites of the Benicia Arsenal. I'm also an artist, and that's not a small thing in my life. As a painter, I see relations between things. I'm not a silo thinker. I think globally and laterally across disciplines. These are indeed dark times. Truth is like a splinter working itself out of the body politic to the surface. Sometimes it hits you in the face, like hearing about the Russian firing missiles on a nuclear power plant tonight. We try to shed light on the working out of truth. Personally, I love hiking, and in my younger years, I can't compete with Nancy, but I hiked 2 weeks on the John Muir Trail and other youthful adventures. I hitchhiked from Athens to London. These days, I'm more of an armchair traveler. I read lots, and lately my reading has taken me into science fiction, reading a book called The Ministry for the Future, which is all about solutions to climate change and how we deal with this crisis in the midst of it. Thank you very much. And now I want to introduce Don Gamillis of Argo Scientific, whom I've known since 2003. He has helped us make a dream come true here.
Thank you, Marilyn. And again, I want to introduce myself. I'm Don Gamillis. I'm the president and founder of Arco Scientific. And I'm really honored tonight to be here to present an overview of what I consider to be the most sophisticated community air monitoring station in the world. Before we get into the details of the station, I do think it'd be good to introduce people to the rather long and sordid history I have with the community of Benicia. As Marilyn mentioned, probably the first time I even knew the existence of Benicia was about 2003, when I got a call from her and she was asking me, as well as the company I work for, are there ways to measure the air, ambient air around in the community of Benicia? This started a whole number of dialogues back and forth and ultimately culminated with me coming to visit Benicia, and specifically Marilyn's kitchen, where we spent a great deal of time making it into kind of a little laboratory for me to kind of demonstrate to her all sorts of really interesting and unique ways to measure air quality. From there, we took our kitchen show out on the road and actually would drive around in a rent-a-car and identifying pollution sources with the technologies that were available at that time. So we would go around, drive around communities, see traffic, pollution from traffic, measure the air quality near schools as well as emission sources. In 2009, we were actually asked at Argos to install a community air monitoring station at the boundary of the Vallejo Refinery. Marilyn and her group was critical in getting the funding for that project. It was actually kind of a unique story. Those were kind of better days, I think, between Marilyn and her group and the refinery, in that we actually employed the refinery manager's son, who was actually going to UC Davis to get his degree in engineering and chemical engineering. That project, I think, was really successful. It showed what we could do with the latest versions of technology. And then, as most things happen, and a couple of years later, we ultimately ran out of funding and things just kind of went dormant again. Then about 4 years ago, the board members of BCAMP called once again, and we obviously responded because we love Benicia, and said, how about we try to put one of these together on a permanent basis? And that's where we are tonight, is kind of present to you guys what we hope to be is the permanent the first, if not for hopefully lots more, community air monitoring stations of this type in the city of Benicia. Again, it's been mentioned before, and I can't understate this, that what we're presenting today is a culmination of decades of work for people who live in your community. The people on this board really do share, a real desire to make Benicia a better place. I see right now we have 51 attendees outside the panelists on this. I would hope every one of you, if you ever saw one of these, members of BCAMP would actually go buy him a beer. Not all 51 beers at the same time, that wouldn't be safe, but still, you really got to thank these guys. They're the true heroes that have made this whole thing a success. Just a few more words about Argo Scientific. I guess one of the critical things about our company is we're really, really dedicated towards working with communities. That's our passion. That's what we do. We were recently awarded the contract to build the fence line and community air monitoring network for the city of Porter Ranch in Los Angeles. And basically that's what BCAMP is on steroids. So instead of one community air monitoring station, there's actually going to be 8 there. And we will also be operating state-of-the-art fence line air monitoring equipment for that community itself. I know on this webinar tonight, and this is awesome, thanks to Airwatch Bay Area, there's also people from Irvine, California, who are currently dealing with a asphalt plant down there that we're actually helping them with. We also do a lot of work these days measuring methane emissions over in Colorado as part of the drilling programs that are going on there. All of that information is part of a regulation that the state of Colorado has put to do air monitoring around them. And we also do a lot of international monitoring. We've been doing this for a long time. We're really good at it. But we're really committed to our friends in Benicia. I mean, it's been a long and wonderful relationship. And I really want everybody on this webinar to understand we work for you, and we will do whatever it is we can to support you. So tonight I'm going to introduce 3 panelists who are going to basically give everybody a little bit of background information on ways that they can actually use the BCAMP technologies as well as the website for your own benefit. The first person that we're going to be talking with is, hopefully everybody knows him. His name is Eric Stevenson. He used to be the Chief of Air Monitoring for the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. He decided to retire about a year and a half ago, and apparently he got tired of surfing and wanted to get back into working in the world of air monitoring, because the first time I called him up to see how he was doing, kind of ended up with a job offer out of this. And boy, we could not have done better than to have someone with the skill and the knowledge of Eric and his abilities to really understand all the nuances of air monitoring. What Eric is actually going to be talking about is presenting an overview of how data from the BCAMP air monitoring platform can be used by community members, regulatory agencies, as well as academics and researchers to better understand the air quality in Benicia. In addition to Eric, we actually have on our panelists Mark Baird, who is actually joining us from Cape Town, South Africa. So there's Mark, and it is actually very early in the morning there right now. Mark and I go way back as well. He and I installed the first fence line air monitoring system, I think, ever in the continent of Africa. We did it at an oil refinery in South Africa, and it was pretty amazing what we did. We set it up and put it at the fence line, and we really only had it looking for just 5 chemicals in real time. And within about 3 months of that system being in operation, Mark was able to tune the data in a way that would allow him to identify all the different sources of pollution in that area based on the data and the wind speed and wind direction. It was a real win for the refinery, because before we had installed this air monitoring equipment, and again, it was just a single open path air monitor, very similar to ones we have installed at BCAMP here. With that one, we could identify the different sources, and again, one of the things before we had installed it, the refinery was blamed for 100% of the odor complaints in the community. By doing the source identification work that Mark did, he was actually able to show that 40% of those complaints actually came from other sources, which was very good for the regulatory agencies because they could then start focusing on those other places. 60% is still a lot of detects and events, but the refinery then used that information to minimize odors by modifying their processes, so that they could actually use that information that way. Ultimately, when that project ended, they actually took it down and made it into a mobile system and use it now for mobile complaints now, where if someone has a complaint, they just put the air monitor in a car. It's actually permanently mounted there, and they just drive out to the place to figure out not only what the gases were, but where they actually came from. And then finally tonight, we have Sufi Abbasi. He's going to be presenting how the information from BCAMP fits into Airwatch, the Airwatch Bay Area project. Airwatch Bay Area aggregates data from all the different types of air monitoring systems all over the Bay Area and makes the data available to the public. So Sufi's going to be describing how BCAMP systems will be integrated into Airwatch itself. So before we actually start talking with the panelists, we're going to present a brief video now where it actually describes the technology and shows where the air monitoring station is and how a lot of it can work. So I'm going to go ahead and do my share, and we're going to present just a very quick video. So. My name is Don Gamelis. I'm the president and founder of Arco Scientific, and we are here today to introduce to the community of Benicia their state-of-the-art air monitoring system that is part of the Benicia Community Air Monitoring Program. These technologies are the best to determine how and what your air quality looks like in the city of Benicia. This air monitoring station was designed specifically for the community of Benicia, California. It's specifically designed to detect gases that are associated with pollution sources around here. In this one here, what we have is a meteorological station that is used to measure the wind speed, the wind direction, relative humidity, and temperature. And that will help us when we actually do detect a gas or a particulate, where that actual item of pollution may have actually come from. Another one of these systems that are here is a system that is called an open path air monitoring system. It actually uses ultraviolet light, and it shoots a beam of light out into the air, and the beam hits a reflector, which then sends the beam of light back to a light detector, and if there's a gas present in the beam, we can determine what the gas is based on what wavelengths of light have been absorbed, and then how much of those wavelengths have been absorbed actually tells us how much of that specific gas is there. We have two different types of particulate monitors. One that does black carbon, which is a very toxic particulate associated with diesel fuel or emissions from something like a railroad. We also have another particulate monitor that is actually set up to look for three different types of particulates based on their size. The size of the particulate actually impacts the type of way it is ingested by humans and then impacts their actual health. We have another system that actually detects hydrogen sulfide gas, which is often associated with a rotten odor smell. In addition to that, we have another system which is what is called an electrochemical sensor that can actually take almost any type of gas that's sort of out there as a residual for what we're looking at, and quantify the different types of gases that might be here. So it is actually able to detect a whole multiple suite of gases, and all of that data is collected and in real time quantified and put together on a public access website for the community to see. The primary use of these systems that we've installed here are to detect these gases, but most importantly is to actually identify where the sources of these gases may have originated from, and then how those sources of pollution are actually impacting the communities themselves. And the beauty of these systems is it actually helps identify where the specific sources are, and thus we can actually figure out what's the best way to find the source and then actually mitigate the problem. It should be understood that one of the really important elements of this is all of this data that's coming in here is actually owned by the public. This is your community air monitoring station. All of this information is made available to you in Benicia. From all of us at Argo Scientific, we thank the community of Benicia for allowing us the opportunity to design a state-of-the-art air monitoring system to better help you understand air quality in your community. Eric, just in what you know and how you've seen the BCAMP system, how can residents of the community of Benicia use this system? So, for example, if you're worried about your kids or grandkids playing in the front yard, how would you use this tool?
Well, thanks, Don, for the nice introduction. I think the most important thing to recognize about this station is that it's going to provide data to the community of Benicia that is representative of the city of Benicia. And so you're going to get information directly about your community. And it's going to come in a number of different ways. What this station is going to be able to do is identify differences between regional type pollution, pollution we see during wildfires, during Don't Light Tonight episodes in the Bay Area, things like that, ozone episodes during the summertime, where it's going to be about the air in Benicia. And so you'll be able to tell exactly what's going on in your community so you can make lifestyle choices based on that information. In addition to that, as Don described, there's a lot of information that is specific to industrial processes, especially compounds that can come from the refinery or other sources nearby in Benicia. And you'll be able to see all sorts of stuff in here that you would expect to see from an air monitoring station, such as traffic patterns on the freeway. You'll be able to see when the commute happens and things like that, so that you'll get an idea of what's actually happening day to day, week to week, month to month in the community of Benicia. In addition to that, there's a way to marry the information that you're personally experiencing. So you smell an odor, you can go to this station, you can see if there are compounds in the air in Benicia that verify your personal experience, so that you can get an idea of what the data are telling you, and you can provide that information to regulatory agencies or use it to determine, ways to limit your exposure in the community.
What if you wanted to dig deeper into the data itself? Because the community owns this information, we're making every bit of information available to the public.
Thanks, Don. I think one of the main important things about the data that's collected here at this particular station is that you do have access to all of it. So the quality of that data can be verified by looking at how things were reviewed, why things may have been taken out of the data because of instrument failure or other factors that have affected it. So you'll be able to determine, here's why that data was removed. You'll be able to do analysis over time. You'll be able to go back in history and see if things have changed from month to month or season to season or year to year. And, it's really a good way to start understanding your personal sort of reactions to air quality in Benicia. One of the other advantages is this station is located ideally near other industrial sources. It's in a business park. It's next to a railroad. It's usually downwind from wharfs. It's also downwind from another number of other refineries in the area. So you'll be able to see how those different sources and facilities and areas away from Benicia can impact Benicia by using this data and other data that's available either through the websites that we produce or the websites that are available through, say, the Air District or Airwatch Bay Area or other sites, so that you can get an understanding of the dynamics that goes on with air quality. It's also going to help give Venetians a much better idea, again, of what's going on in their area, because the Bay Area Air Quality District is also installing a station on the south side, the west side of Benicia, and you'll be able to see, impacts as they move across from one side of Benicia to the other.
Is the data quality on ours comparable to what you would see with an air district monitoring station?
The thing that Argos is trying to do here is ensure that all the quality mechanisms that are in place for regulatory stations that the Bay Area operates are also mirrored in the way that Argos treats the data. So, for instance, we tried to cite the monitoring station according to EPA regulations. Where possible, we are using EPA certified equipment to provide that level of data quality that will give you confidence in the data that the systems are working, they're measuring correctly, they're precise, they're accurate, and that the data can be utilized by other scientific organizations to draw conclusions and make policy.
How could this air monitoring station be used as a tool to address the issues like the Vallejo abatement order? Is there a role for that?
Well, there's the one role where the monitoring will take place at the station itself, but a lot of the instrumentation that's contained within the station can be moved to other locations within the city of Benicia if there are impacts being felt there. So, for example, if one area of the city is complaining about odors that smell like rotten eggs, we can move instrumentation to that area and start to quantify what those impacts are, so that we can provide that information to the public and anybody who might be able to utilize it to take action.
The Air District showed a map of where the communities, where the emissions levels for things like benzene would actually be higher because the emissions from this vent actually went over the fence line farther into the community. And I think what we could easily do is, for example, take that open path system and actually redeploy it in the areas where there's the greatest potential community impact.
Exactly. And the thing is that the data quality objectives that we will try to meet will still be there as we redeploy this instrumentation, so that, again, the data quality can be robust enough that people have confidence in it and can use it to make decisions.
And I think, interestingly enough, we could spend hours just bantering about
That's for sure.
The beauty of these air monitoring systems is when we redeploy them, we know where they're located. So it actually changes that air monitor on a map to show it's been peeled off and put in a different place. Which again is a really unique way of looking at doing community air monitoring.
I think, one of the things as a data geek and scientist that I think excites me the most is that this really is kind of, first of its kind sort of monitoring that includes, high quality instruments, thorough QA, QC. It's going to be able to be utilized hopefully by people in the research community that can come in, look at historical data, do analysis, and provide additional information to the city of Benicia through that analysis. And I think it's going to be a model for other communities to look at and say, hey, we want something similar to this to really help our community understand the air quality that they're experiencing. So, I think the fact that it's a first of its kind sort of development is going to bring a lot of benefit and a lot of activity from the air monitoring community to the community of Benicia.
Basically, it's all about data. I think Eric mentioned it a bit earlier, but we've got the Benicia station, as you saw in the earlier video, is measuring a large number of pollutants that are associated with different industries. It's being done in real time. There's also meteorological data, so wind speed, wind direction, which gives us an idea of the direction the pollution's coming from. So that allows you to get an idea of when you get a detect of a certain compound or pollutant, where it's coming from. You can work back to the source. There's also information on the different industrial emitters in the area and what type of pollutants they emit that are detected at the Benicia station. This also allows us, with the wind direction and the pollutants detected at the site, to work out where things are coming from. And then, as you'll hear a little bit later, there's also quite a rich data set from Airwatch, which are in different locations to the Decamp site, and also allow us to get an idea of pollutants from different directions, which allow us to triangulate sources. And as I said, as we get more data, the data set gets richer, and it makes it easier for us to triangulate or locate sources in the future.
Have you seen anything with the preliminary data so far?
Actually, I have noticed that there are quite high values of PM2.5 coming from the north. PM2.5 is fine particulate matter that's usually associated with industrial processes or burning of fossil fuels. The particulate instrument that was shown in the video picks this up, as well as PM10, which is also a respirable particle that's slightly bigger.
And quickly, Mark, the PM stands for particulate matter, and then the number after that is the size of the particle itself, correct?
Yeah. So the bigger size is usually from like wind-blown dust, and as you get smaller, it becomes associated with more industrial or vehicular pollution.
Are there health effects associated with particulate matter of that size, the 2.5?
Yeah, I think if you look at the World Health Organization data, I think the majority, more than half of the top 10 health effects, pollutants that cause health effects are associated with fine particulate matter.
And I guess, just quickly, so forest fires would obviously have particulate matter in them, as well as other sources.
Yeah, so as I said, there'd be, if you're looking at dust from a storage pile, we probably see PM10, which is the slightly bigger respirable particulates. And as you get to burning of fossil fuels, forest fires, industrial sources, the particulates get smaller and get in the PM2.5 or PM1 range.
Okay.
But also, the instrument allows you an amount of differentiation between the types of emitters.
So, sounds like you're on the hunt of a source of particulate matter that could have significant health effects to the community. Are there other pieces of the air monitoring equipment that can be used to do this to other types of source identification?
Yeah, there's quite a suite that we're monitoring. So, an example would be the black carbon monitor. the black carbon monitor measures particulates that are made out of carbon. So it'll be a subset of the PM10 and PM2.5, if you will. And what that black carbon monitor allows us to do is it allows us to differentiate between carbon particles that are produced from the burning of things like vegetation and carbon particles that are produced from the burning of fossil fuels. So if there's high black carbon coming from a particular wind direction and it's mainly from black carbon burnt by vegetation, we can then sort of work out that it could be a forest fire or some sort of fire in the vicinity. But if it's coming from fossil fuel fired black carbon because of the burning of fossil fuel, then we need to be looking at some sort of industrial source or a source of vehicles.
So the air monitoring station's right next to a railroad track that has a diesel locomotive. I'd imagine we'd be able to pick that up. You smiled when I said this. So what will happen when the train goes by?
Well, I think it's sort of it'll summarize what we've been saying so far. But I would expect the answer is yes, and I would expect the system to see an increase in PM2.5, which is the fine particles, because of the burning of the diesel in the diesel locomotive. And then, as we mentioned earlier, we'd expect an increase in the black carbon coming from fossil fuels rather than from the burning of vegetation. And obviously, that depending on how well the diesel locomotive is, how efficiently it's burning the fuel, we pick up other things, other organic compounds or sulfur dioxide on the system.
And I guess, because we do have to sort of keep moving things along, I guess, but one final question is, one of the reasons I think we selected this equipment was to actually, because it's what I can call adaptive. That is that every once in a while, and this has happened more times than once, we've actually set up these types of equipment and detected unknown gases or pollutants, and then gone ahead and figured out what that was, and then added that new pollutant into the actual ability for the monitors to detect those gases. Can you give a couple examples of where we might have been able to do this in the past?
You're correct. The system is adaptive, and I've got two examples. Would be a compound called furfural, which we picked up in one of our systems down in South Coast. We were monitoring around an industrial facility and suddenly started seeing this compound, and we worked out it was associated with the forest fires in California. So by adding a compound such as furfural in, which we've now detected and we've quantified in our laboratory, it allows us to then get an indication when there's high pollution from forest fires, which can be associated. We'll also pick high particulates up and high black carbon, but that's an example. And another example would be naphthalene, which is associated with sources such as refineries and asphalt plants. We've managed to pick that up outside of coke plants on the East Coast, and now can add it into our library, and it'll allow us to get more information about emissions from nearby sources in Benicia, such as refineries and asphalt plants.
So in essence, the work we did on the East Coast where we were able to identify that gas, we were able to upgrade all the other community air monitoring systems that have that same technology. And now we can, see naphthalene, which again doesn't necessarily have extreme health effects, but is associated with all sorts of other compounds that actually have really bad health effects.
Yeah, it's part of a group of chemicals called PAHs, and a lot of them are quite high carcinogens. Have got high risk of carcinogenic effects according to health risk assessments. So yes, we the system is adaptive, and we were able to use the information from our other sites to upgrade all the other instruments that we're running around the country.
Great. And again, I want to, for the people who are on the call or on the webinar who aren't necessarily community members of Benicia, if we do find stuff in Benicia that's unknown, we will be obviously sharing that information with all the different other communities we work with, to enhance their monitoring systems themselves. So thank you, Mark. And once again, I do hope you stick around because it's just getting morning now, questions and answers at the end of the webinar.
Thanks, Don.
So finally, I want to kind of close out this section of the webinar by introducing Sufi. Sufi is Abbasi. He's with Airwatch Bay Area. And he's going to describe how the information generated by the BCAMP air monitoring systems will be integrated into their projects. So, welcome, Sufi. Can you give us a brief description of Airwatch Bay Area and how it benefits the community in general?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and it's an honor to be here. Airwatch Bay Area started development in 2015 and launched in 2017, and it's run by Professor Gwen Ottinger through the nonprofit Fairtech Collective, and we work with air quality activists and warriors like Kathy and Constance to help build tools to make air quality data available and prescient through our websites and other projects like that. And I wanted to share my screen just to kind of get into more of the features of Airwatch Bay Area and an adjacent project called Smell My City. So Airwatch Bay Area is twofold. The first is we pull data from fence line refineries and in Richmond and Benicia, Carter, Rodeo, Martinez. And we also pull community monitors in Benicia and Vallejo to kind of aggregate data across the many different places where data is available. And the second is we present user reports of people just making reports about what the quality of the air is, what they're smelling, what health effects that they're experiencing. And this is powered through the Smell My City app run by the Carnegie Mellon Create Lab.
Okay, so this app is available for people to download now?
Absolutely. You can visit smellmycity.org, and you can download the app through these buttons here from your mobile phone. And what's amazing about Smell My City is it gives you an opportunity to submit smell reports as you're experiencing incidents that are happening right now. And it kind of tells you where those incidents happen, as people are reporting. And it also lets you submit health symptoms that you're experiencing in the moment. And then finally, you'll be able to view other reports that are happening in your area. And a future update in the works right now, we're going to try to get push notifications to you when, let's say, there are like many reports happening or there's like some sort of air quality incident. So again, you can download the app by searching Smell My City on the App Store. Oh, my filter is not showing you. And then you can sign up, or you can actually just immediately start using the app. You just put a little sign in there, and then you can start using it today.
And I was just quickly, I've been coached by my very good friend Dr. Ottinger many times that I'm supposed to promote the Airwatch Bay Area program and tell people to sign up at least 10 times in this webinar itself. So I'm behind on this, and I will be doing these plugs. Otherwise, I don't want her to get mad at me. So back to our webinar. Brief intermission there. What have you found with the Smell My City app already, Sufi, that might be of interest to the community people here?
Yeah, there are a lot of reports coming in from Vallejo and Benicia. And I think what's really powerful about Smell My City and data from Airwatch Bay and like all the different kind of data sources is that it gives you an opportunity to give some context to what's happening. So it kind of gives you a chance to say, you know, what are you experiencing right now while all these, you know, air quality incidents are happening, and all the data that's out there to kind of see what's happening from the sensors. It kind of gives it a chance to annotate the data with lived experience, which is, I think, a very powerful feature of these two kind of platforms working in tandem.
And I guess, and then finally, I mean, what is it that the people on this webinar can do to kind of help you guys grow this really amazing program?
Absolutely. I think one of, as someone who kind of works with data every day, I really want to be able to get your data. I want to be able to, you know, analyze your data, figure out, okay, what was the data like this week? And what was it like last week? What was it like last month? And kind of do an interesting comparison of, you know, what is that data telling us? You know, there's through, you know, computers and, you know, data analytics and all that stuff. And I really want to thank BCAMP for how easy it was for us to get the data. We worked with Don and Mark to, you know, get direct access to the data. We were able to, you know, pull it into our system very easily. So unlike, and unfortunately, I mean, the other data that we tried to get from other places, it's very hard to get that data. And if there are any like air quality operators, you know, on the call right now, I really would make an appeal, like, please give us an API to get your data, and we would love to work with it. So I just want to say thank you again for working with us and getting your data available for us to use and make good things out of.
The next thing we're going to do is just a very quick website tour, just to give people a brief overview of what it is and what the feel is. I would greatly encourage people to just come and play. Try it out. If you have any questions, we're always available. We really want to make this something that is used by the community. And again, it's yours. It's your tool. It's owned by you guys. So I'm going to start it off by, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We'll go back to here. And I'm actually just going to be going over an overview of the first of 5 pages or pages of this website. And the one I'm specifically going to be just giving a very brief tour on is what we call the emission level. This is where we'll see kind of the real-time snapshot of what's going on and what's happened in the past 24 hours. So every chemical we look for will have a little indicator with it. If there's no detection, there really isn't an indicator as to what the air quality is at the time. But if there is something, it will go from excellent to very poor. So we can go down here and take a look at some of the more active data here, including, for example, ozone and PM 2.5. And each of these graphs, what we have is at the very top, first off, to the far left, there's actually a little dial from 0 to 100 that is 100 being it's at what we call the OEHA level. That is the exposure level that is considered harmful by the state of California. So you have a little dial that tells you where you are on this range from 0 to 100. It also tells you what the current value is. And you can also see in the graph the past 24 hours, and you can just track it with your cursor. And it will also tell you, at the bottom here, these arrows are telling you which way the wind's blowing. So if, let's say, you're looking at PM 2.5 and you see that, it's getting close to what would be the OEHA level, this is when you might want to consider, do I want to go out, if I'm an at-risk population or children or elderly or people with respiratory problems, you might want to consider looking at that and saying, well, maybe I should change my plans or change how I want to approach, what I'm doing these days. If you want to get a little more information on each of these, all you have to do is hit the read more. And this will actually tell you a much larger level, deeper level of description as to what each of these pollutants actually does to you physically. And again, this updates itself every 5 minutes, so it's a continuous data stream of data. And it's a great tool for just being able to look, how was the last day? How was the last, and interesting, I think the really interesting times are when you get into, like when you have forest fires or where there's an event at, a large pollution source and the plume is coming directly towards the air monitoring equipment. That's certainly when you'll see these things spike.
Hi, it's Kathy Carriage.
Yep.
And I just want to draw your attention to the map view. First off, you can zoom in or out, and when you zoom out a little bit, you can see this is where our station is, right here. And you're able to see that we're really, just sort of downwind from a lot of these big refineries. And we're across the bay from the 2 refineries and the chemical plant in Martinez. If you zoom in a little bit, you can get a little bit more bird's eye view of where we are in Benicia. This is the refinery, the asphalt plant, the tank farm. Here's the buffer zone. We're also very close to the port. This is the Army wharf, and that's where Vallejo ships out products, and also where crude oil comes in, and this is where pipelines come in. This is the dock where there's a pet coke, and that's the subject right now of a recent lawsuit from Baykeeper. And here are the pet coke silos, which you can also see over my shoulder. We're close to railroads and freeways, and all of those, of course, can be sources of air pollution. A couple other things that are cool about this is if you click on the site itself, you can sort of get an instant read of all the chemicals and of the air direction. So right now you can see it's coming from the northwest heading to the southeast. A couple other things, you can see the terrain view or the street view, or of course this is my favorite, the satellite view. Maryland is going to talk about the data history, and that's the next tab over.
This tab allows you to see trends. What Don had explained in the first page, where you get the 24-hour report of emissions. And remember, emissions are recorded every detections are recorded every 5 minutes, 5-minute intervals. In this case, you can see what has happened over 7 days and as many as 30 days. If you wanted to do more analysis of, say, several months worth of data, Argos, as our contractor operating the system 24/7, and the website, they will be able to do analytics to determine what those trends are based on what you see here, adding up to longer detection lengths of time. So that would be a special kind of analytics that would have to be requested of Argos. It's not something that they would be doing on a routine basis, but up to 30 days is pretty incredible considering for all of us during fire season. We know how many days we spent in fires in the last 3 years, and this would give you some opportunity to see how this system detects, let's say, PM 2.5 during fires, and even compare it to purple air monitors that we have around town, and when we go to purple air to check in. Thank you.
Okay, so our next tab here is report an issue. And under report an issue, actually the first thing we've got is places you can sign up for alerts. This is a really quick and easy way to sign up for alerts from Solano County and sign up for notifications from the city. The city can notify you when there's been flaring or other events at Vallejo. This is probably the easiest way to get to that. And then we have different places where you can report an incident. And we would suggest that you report to all 5 places. And these are direct links to those report sites. And as you can see, we have Airwatch Bay Area, our fire station, Bay Area Air Quality Management District, Vallejo, and there's a phone number to call with Vallejo, and California Air Resources Board. Our final tab is resources, and Marilyn is going to explain a little bit about that.
The resources button allows people to do a slightly deeper dive for information that might not be immediately relevant to you. If you were finding a spike and you wanted to know something immediately, you would have to be a little bit resourceful and look for help through this button. And this button is under development. That means that community members can make suggestions about what other resources might be included. Under the first heading, Connect with Bay Area Community Organizations, Campaigns, and Resources, you can find out what other groups are doing, what they signal as important for community members to know about. We have people in Vallejo who are organized with the Citizens Air Monitoring Network who are paying particular attention to, say, Phillips 66 conversion to a biofuels project. And this is under, advisement now with an EIR now being reviewed. And so being in touch with how other people are dealing in fence line communities with similar problems is very important about air quality. Health risk information is available primarily through California Air Resources Board, which is called CARB for short. That's a division of Cal EPA. And within Cal EPA, you will find the Office of Office of Environmental, it's called OEHA, right, Don? It's Office of Health Hazardous Assessments. I always forget this, it's too hard. We will have that on this website soon, this button, but
Office of
really,
Environmental Health
Hazard Assessment. Thank you very much. There it is right up front on our first button. The main thing is that if you want to know more about what's in our air and what the particular health risks are associated to particular chemicals, you would go to EPA, start with CARB, and go to OEHA site. Thank you very much. And also, at the bottom, we do cite that we have a memorandum of understanding that the city holds between Benicia and Vallejo, and that's worth knowing about and what we can expect. And the cooperation agreement that they signed to improve communication between the refinery and the community. And so BCAMP can help serve that memorandum because we will have verifiable data, which is really important when you're talking about evidence-based science and making sure that we have quality assurance so that we can develop public trust around what we hear and what we experience. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Kathy and Marilyn. We're now going to go ahead and move quickly into the Q&A section. This is primarily, I think, going to be myself, Sufi, Mark, and Eric, if he hasn't gone off surfing. Yeah, we never know. But what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and I'm going to share the screen that has the ones in the Q&A. I think there's a number of these I could probably answer pretty quickly myself, but we will definitely get everybody involved, the experts on these. First from Mayor Young, his camera's not working. We can't fix your camera. Sorry. But we could, if we could, we'd try. The next question was, will your station pick up chlorine gas and/or anhydrous ammonia? The answer to this, I can answer half of it right away. Anhydrous ammonia, absolutely. And we can actually, what we're going to be doing is adding more chemicals to the website. These monitors have a whole library of gases we can look for. And ammonia is definitely one of those. I'm going to leave it to my colleagues, Eric and Mark. Could chlorine gas be detected by the electrochemical sensor or not?
It may be hard to differentiate that without additional information, but it could be done as we get more knowledge and more data.
Okay. So I'm going to give that it's not really ideal.
Yeah.
Ammonia absolutely is ideal. The next question was, how is this monitor powered and what happens when the power is lost? There's a reason this thing was kind of late, and that was not about the technology, it was about the power. So it took us a long time to get power to the station. It is currently run, on normal power through Pacific Gas and Electric. We will hope in the future and have this on our list to actually run it via solar. But that's going to be, honestly, in the priority of things, I think getting data from the system now and expanding the number of chemicals that it can detect and that we can report to the community in real time is going to be our primary effort. And I think, as we get a much better hold on that, then we will ultimately be able to come up with backup power supply for it or have it completely independent. I guess I'm Elizabeth. I don't really understand your next question. What are examples of decisions that the city can or could make? I can give you permission. Let's see if I can do that. Let's see. The problem is there's a whole bunch of people.
Too hard.
Yeah, I am trying to find Elizabeth in the. Oh, there we go. There we go. So Elizabeth, can you explain what your question is there?
So thank you, Don. It's really great to see you, and I appreciate all this. It's just very exciting time. It's taken 23 years.
Not that anybody's counting. 23 years, 4 months, 3 days.
Right. So the question in the presentation, it was mentioned that having this kind of information would be helpful for decision making by the city council. And I just wanted you to clarify, or others to clarify, exactly what the city council could make decisions about.
So I'm going to defer this to the BCAMP board. Sorry.
I will try to offer just a layman's understanding of what citizens can do, and that is to educate. For BCAMP is an educational nonprofit. We're not a political body. However, what we have is verified information. In other words, this is everything is transparent. The information that's provided here can give guidance to people in when, for instance, our fire chief is charged with helping, being the liaison for the city, for the council, with Vallejo. The fire chief can tap into our resource and our data to compare with what he's hearing from Vallejo or any other source that's identified, a stationary source, for instance, to discuss a problem, or if there's major fire going on and we have a spectrum of data on the kinds of pollutants in the air and PM 2.5, they can assure us, the city could assure us that they believe also that we need to keep school children out from playgrounds during a fire that is obviously being detected here. I mean, it's really an educational tool, but I really have the hope that people are willing to be educated. That is an assumption I'd like to be able to make, and that people will make use of data. We're not just doing this because we love data, it's because we want to do something with it. So as Constance is always saying with Airwatch, let's make sure that we empower the community to give reports, to call the city with verifiable data. We want to develop trust in our city officials and the kinds of things they report. We don't want to hear anymore that, there's no health risk, unless we can show that what kind of air quality we have on any given day. And it's not that we can say for absolute sure, given where our monitoring station is located, that we can say absolutely what's going on throughout the entire city, because we have microclimates in the city, very different geographic areas. But in basically, we can give some sense of what's going on, which will invite more questions, et cetera, et cetera.
And if I could just add on a little bit to that, I think one of the main frustrations with monitoring that's done out there right now is that there's questions about are the data high enough quality to move to the next stage. So for example, let's say the monitor picks up something during very specific times that can be related to a particular activity somewhere. You have data that can be given to somebody where they can verify it as scientifically valid, and you can take whatever action is appropriate based on that, as opposed to having to go through another round of monitoring with other instruments that may have that have a higher quality level than say like a sensor at somebody's house. So you can kind of leapfrog additional studies if you have data of a high enough quality to go directly to policy. So that's kind of the advantage here, is that we're striving to give data quality of high enough standard that it's scientifically defensible, it's verifiable and transparent, so that you can leapfrog directly to whatever actions might be necessary to mitigate those impacts. That's the goal here.
Okay. So let's try to. I know we're. I don't know how long people wanted to stay on this webinar. We'll try to abbreviate these as best we can here. But quickly, the next question was, where was the monitoring system built? The interesting thing about this monitoring system is it is designed in a manner that as technology gets old and obsolete, we can just add new stuff in. And that's how this is designed. So there is no one monitoring place the stuff was built. It's actually a collection of the best monitors we can buy to look for the specific chemicals. And like I said, it's amazing to see how air monitoring equipment is evolving these days. Stuff that you purchased 5 years ago is obsolete. And BCAMP is specifically designed to never become obsolete. That's the beauty of the whole thing. When something new arises, it's usually going to be a lot cheaper and easier to run, and you just plug it in, and all you'll know is there's now more data showing up for you guys to look at. The next question was, does the app alter when the levels of pollutant levels are over what is,
I can take this one.
yeah, go ahead.
Yep.
You got it.
So yeah, does the app alert you when levels of pollution is level over what is considered healthy? And we put healthy in air quotes because there's no healthy level of benzene. Yeah, so we are working with the Carnegie Mellon Crate Lab, who make the Smell My City app, to be able to get this level of like notification to you. So it's kind of a work in progress currently. But I just wanted to share like what the 3 main ingredients for something like this, to get a feature like this out to you would be. So the first ingredient is high quality data, data that we can trust, highly vetted and high quality. And, it's coming in at a very frequent cadence, every 5 minutes. The second is some sort of like analytics on like, when do we want to decide when to send an alert, right? Do we want to, go for like maximums, like, how often do we want to send these kind of notifications? That's kind of an analytics question. The third one is we need users, people to push these notifications to. So, Chris, please, again, I'll rep the Smell My City app. Please download that and get your reports in there because kind of helps give us some guidance as to where things are happening and also what monitors we need to look into because people are reporting a lot. So yeah, again, work in progress, but yeah, we're working with them to figure something like this out.
Great. So next question, can you evaluate PM 2.5 from the refinery versus rail versus highway and marine? The answer to that is yes. And the way we do that is actually by tracking not only the PM2 that's being detected, but also which way the air is blowing, which way the wind's blowing at any given time. Obviously, that breaks down when the wind is too low to, move pollution. But in general, it's quite easy to do source identification and how you discriminate between the different sources is based on the wind direction. Now, the next question is a little more nuanced, but it's actually really interesting. Can you tell the difference between wildfire smoke versus industrial? Again, what you'll normally see with smoke is a lot of particulate matter, which has pretty serious health impacts. And the really interesting thing is this is when it gets back to the fact that our system has this ability to, for example, detect this gas called furfural, which isn't a particulate, it's a gas, but it is specifically associated with burning vegetation. So if there's furfural in the air and there's particulate, we know it's from a wildfire. If there's particulate in the air without the furfural, it's most likely more of an industrial source. Next question is, will BCAMP be doing the analysis for the data collected? And will the community be informed of your findings? Certainly, we have the ability to do all of the analysis, and we will, but we want to make this an educational tool, and we want to train community members to do this. That'll greatly enhance the experience and the buy-in to the community to have people to do this. There is nothing more I would enjoy doing than teaching kids, high school kids, how to analyze air pollution, air quality data. And I think they would love it. Sufi, do you have a comment?
Yeah. I just wanted to mention something that I mentioned Gwen Onger is cooking up is we want to be able to get BCAMP data to students to do like hackathons and data analysis so that they can actually dig in and just figure out like where they're interesting hotspots, what was really happening and try to get some interesting visualizations. And so yeah, they got kind of the power of having data and having this data so widely available is being able to get it to students and academics and professors and activists and people who actually want to build cool visualizations and be able to make actionable reports from them. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that flag too. also work in progress.
Yep. But again, an awesome concept and something obviously Argos will happily support. Again, what is the make and model of the air monitoring systems? It's an array, and we'll actually list all the vendors on the website. We'll actually kind of add that information in so that people can get a better understanding of it. In the data view next to chemical, there's a number. What is the number? Can someone go to data view? Let's see. I'm going to, let's see. Mark or Eric, can you take a look at that for us in data view?
Is it the parts per billion and the?
Next to the name of the chemical. Don't really know.
I think they're talking about, or the question could be about the unit of measure, parts per billion. That seems fairly clear, but UG/M3, could you explain that one? We need to have that.
Yeah, so very quickly, and we won't want to get too in depth with this, but when we measure a gas, we measure it in the what's called parts per billion. When we measure particulate matter, and particulates are different than gases, the units are called micrograms per cubic meter. Really don't want to get into what the scientific definition of what micrograms per cubic meter means, but it's basically that's the concentration in the air, and then once you get above a certain health standard, it becomes hazardous. So it's just a different way. Anytime you'll see something that says PM, means particulate matter. 2.5 is the size of the particle, and concentration is how much of it is there. And it's always with particles. It's in what's called micrograms per cubic meter. For marine, glad to hear you can monitor anhydrous ammonia. Just saw it on the defense line committee. Ammonia is never detected on our real-time systems. The reason that's the case is the model of open path air monitor we're using for BCAMP has that capability. And unfortunately, the long path fence line systems that are used at the refineries don't. It's just the kind of light bulb that's used is different. So the BCAMP open path system doesn't have the ability to go very long paths. It's probably, 100 to 150 yards. The fence line systems at a refinery, those can go a quarter mile. But the trade-off is you can't see all of the gases. The next question, who will be doing the mobile monitoring and how will citizens be able to activate this? We haven't really decided yet. I mean, to be quite honest, it's a capability we want to build into this system. Certainly this stuff is deployable. We really want to get the community involved in doing a lot of this. And that's really the critical thing is if it's left up to Argos to do all of this, the ultimate capability is going to be limited. If the community embraces this, and we'd love to train you guys, there's so much more utility you can get out of these systems. Is the Benicia Fire Department aware of BCAMP and are they tied to BCAMP? So they are aware. The fire chief actually came out on kind of the very, very, very first opening day of the things actually functioning. So they're quite well aware of the system and what it can do. I will leave it to the board to discuss the relationship between the fire department and BCAMP. I would assume it's not something that's tied in stone or set in stone. Kathy, can you answer?
Oh, I was just going to say, I believe Josh Chadwick is at the webinar tonight. So we hope that we will be able to work in cooperation with the fire department and that they'll be able to use our data.
And certainly we will make any of these resources available to the fire department or anybody else who's interested in using it. How is the sensory system calibrated and quantified to ensure consistent operation along with limit detection? How do we know the unit is operating to specifications? I'll say something and then very quickly defer to Eric. We are using standard ways of calibrating the systems that are put out by the manufacturer, as well as what are considered standard practices for the different types of air monitoring equipment. And quite honestly, we've actually pushed the envelope on this because we know that this system will get a lot of scrutiny. So we actually have gone above and beyond the ability to calibrate it, and we're actually have calibration mechanisms built into a lot of the equipment that no one else in this world is doing. So, for example, with the OpenPath system, whereas the standard way of doing these things is calibrate them once a month, we actually calibrate them daily. And we actually we've built in some automation to actually do all that without us having to even touch the systems. So you've truly got the most sophisticated air monitors in the world. Eric, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, there are there's additional information that most of these instruments put out in addition to just the concentrations that they're reading, that provide an idea of how well the system is meeting its operational parameters. So the data stream that comes out gives Argos an idea of, is the instrument still operating within its operational parameters? It gives us an idea of when systems are starting to degrade and need attention so that you can get out there before there's a major problem. And those data are inherent in the stream that the instrumentation puts out. So we have a high level of confidence, looking at any given point along with that additional data to determine whether the instrumentation is all within its stated manufacturer's operating parameters.
Okay, so the next question is actually coming from someone in Irvine, California. Again, Argos is quite aware of this.
I think we skipped one up here. How does your capability compare to the BACMed station on Virginia Street in Vallejo?
Oh, well, there you go, Eric.
Well, in some instances, it's the same instrumentation. For example, black carbon, the instrumentation that's used at this station is used in air monitoring stations throughout the nation to measure black carbon. The ozone monitor has what's known as federal equivalency methods, which means that it is certified by EPA to perform up to standards that are used in air monitoring stations throughout the nation. Same with SO2 and other compounds like that. In addition, the OpenPath system that Don's talked about throughout this time is something that the Air District doesn't utilize at this point, and provides a lot of real-time data that at this point, most air monitoring organizations use canisters in laboratory analysis to do. So, you're getting results much later than real time, days after something may have occurred. So the instrumentation at this station has some capabilities that are different than what's at the Vallejo Street Station, but in all cases that we were able to get instrumentation that met EPA criteria, that's what we did.
Okay, so now we can jump to our friends in Irvine. How big is the monitoring system? Can they be installed in someone's backyard without having to drill walls or installing on roof? Again, the answer to that is absolutely, we can do it that way. When we deployed a system down at Porter Ranch, that's exactly what we did. We set it up in a community person's backyard. We had it set up quite simply and up and running with a real-time website in less than a day. The next question follow on to that is, can we quickly export or archive data or take snapshot in advance of the website? And again, that absolutely. So oftentimes we could work to actually export the data, in like an Excel spreadsheet or something like that. And be aware you get data every 5 minutes. So you're going to get a lot of data, and it's a pretty quick time resolution. Certainly, we're able to capture events as they are occurring. Next question are our contacts on the website. I don't get it. Kathy, did we do that?
We have Argo Scientific is on the website. I'm not sure if your phone number is. We have an email that you can email us, bcamp94510@gmail.com. So if you want to get in touch with any of us specifically, just email us, and then we can send that back to you. We'll reply to you.
Yeah. When will the website go live, or is the website just fenceline.org? Well, the website is live right now. You going to have a specific URL, Kathy, or are you going to?
We had talked about that, but right now, if you just do Google Benicia Community Air Monitoring Program, you should be able to find the website. It's otherwise it's fenceline.org/BCAMP, I think. But yeah, we're hoping that we'll get something up that will also lead you to it. But if you do Google, you just have to make sure there are 2 Benicia monitoring systems. One is Vallejo and one is ours.
Okay, and then another question, is there the ability to output BCAMP data for statistical software for analyzing more data more efficiently? We certainly can add that functionality in, but I also think this is probably more in the role of what Airwatch is going to be doing. So, Sufi, what do you think?
Yeah, so this is actually an interesting question because here on Airwatch Bay Area, we are actually currently working on a project to collect all of the many different data sources of air quality across not only the Bay Area, but Southern California, and try to make a platform to make it very easy to download that data. And then, so once you download the data, you can be able to bring it into Excel, bring it into R, any of your favorite statistical softwares. So that's kind of a current work in progress website, but we are trying to get that available for our data hackathon. I think that's happening in June. So this is again, I keep saying work in progress, but that's something that we're actually kind of working on, in tandem.
And we'll obviously provide a link when you do the data hackathon. We'll definitely let people know when those kind of events are going, so that people could either partake or learn how to grab these large chunks of data to do all this kind of work. And then it looks like the last of the Q&A questions, and this is my favorite question of the night. How are you informing the research community about BCAMP and its capabilities and resources? We're really proud of the fact and are happy that we're actually collaborating with any number of the research community itself. We're currently partnered with the Atmospheric Science Department at UCLA. They invented a lot of the science we do today in what's called fence line monitoring. And we're actually there, we're co-partners to design and install the equipment down in Porter Ranch. They are very aware of what we're doing, believe me. And also through Airwatch, Gwen Audiger is either, I would say at this point, is internationally renowned as a researcher who is very well connected with the research community and is making all of one of the big benefits of Airwatch is to be able to give that community large amounts of data sets to use for research. One of the things that's going to be a giant benefit of BCAMP for the community of Benicia is because what we're doing is so state-of-the-art and the data quality is so high, this is going to attract researchers from all over the world because you're not going to get this kind of data anywhere else. And so when we start combining this with what the Air District's going to be putting in with their air monitoring stations, and hopefully we can grow this. I hope this is not station number one and that's it. Like I said, community of Porter Ranch, keep bringing it up. They're getting 8 community monitoring stations because and it'll give a very healthy picture and comprehensive of their environment. Plus fence line systems, and all of the data is owned by the community. It's a community-based monitoring system.
Don, why don't you explain a little bit about Porter Ranch, only insofar as a community, a bedroom community can feel so safe out in the San Fernando Valley, and then suddenly, boom.
Well,
why?
It's a Disney destiny story. I mean, if you ever watch any Disney movie, they're always the same. Everything starts out beautiful, peaceful, wonderful. A villain comes in, messes everything up. A hero. The hero is not us, it's the community. Sorry, it is the community, not us. Comes and saves the day. We help the community mop things up, and the world's a better place. Porter Ranch was a community. It's in the northern part of Los Angeles. It's right next to a giant methane storage facility. And one of the wells blew out about 5 years ago. And it was an uncontrolled methane release for 3 months. It was so bad that children would walk outdoors and just get nosebleeds on the way to school. There was so much methane in the air, they made it a no-fly zone because they were afraid the atmosphere might ignite. The community was devastated, and out of that whole experience, they are now probably one of the most in-tune group of people you will ever meet about air quality. And we're actually designing what's the final program for them. And it's comprehensive. It plays off very much what Benicia's about, where for the community, we build a tailor it to the pollutants that are in their neighborhood. And then we make sure they have a say in the entire process. And ultimately, they own the data. And, the facility's still there. They're still worried about that, but they at least now know that there's going to be an air monitoring system that the minute anything happens, they will know and they will be able to, act accordingly. And that's really what we want to get with this, is we want to make this information easy for the public to understand and be a part of it, but mostly own it. Because if people own it and want to use it, then you get so much more out of this than just us running stuff for people.
Don, we've got a couple more questions in the chat.
Okay.
Do you want me to just ask them?
Yeah, why don't you do that? Because
Okay, one from Mary Francis. Would the BCAMP system detect and identify the leakage going on for years at Vallejo that nobody seemed to know about?
The issue right now is the way that vent is situated. The air pollution that it's created, for the most part, will go over the fence line at Vallejo and our community itself, or our station itself. But during times when the air is steady and stagnant, like in the winter time, yeah, we probably would be able to detect gases, especially at night when the atmospheric conditions were conducive to doing it. Honestly, the more routine ones would probably be picked up where the air district's putting their station on just a routine like during the day. Because again, that stack and the fact that the air was moving out of it so fast probably is sending it way out into the community itself, not near the fence line. But once the atmospheric conditions stabilize, like at night, when you get fog and things like that, that's when we would be able to pick it up.
Okay, the next question is, and maybe this would be good for Eric, will the Air District use BCAMP data? Are they aware of this?
I am retired from the Air District, so I can't speak for the Air District. But, you know, I would expect that the Air District is aware of BCAMP. I know that we've had discussions with folks at the Air District about it. And our goal is to make the data quality high enough so that, yes, they can use it, or they can at least understand what the limitations of that data are, and be able to, take whatever appropriate action might be necessitated by what that data is telling them. Like I said before, we've strived to make this data as, regulatory as possible by using EPA certified equipment, applying the appropriate quality control and quality assurance metrics to that data, so that that data can be viewed, can be determined to be of high enough quality so that the Air District can use it. That's the goal. But of course, that's a decision that the Air District has to make.
I'd like to add one thing to that, Eric, which is our community has often said that we did not want to only rely on the two BCAMP monitoring stations that are located on Tuolumne Street in Vallejo and in Concord downtown, because they would say, well, if things look pretty good on those monitoring stations, they are close enough to Benicia, within say 5 to 10 miles of Benicia, that that would do as a reading for Benicia. This will be the first time where we can say, wait a minute, here's our data. What do you think of that? How do you triangle our data with your data to come up with maybe a clearer picture of what's going on in any given time frame in Benicia?
Thanks for making that point, Marilyn. I think that's important.
The next is, will the school district be trained on how to read the monitor system to help keep our school children safe when emissions are at dangerous levels? I mean, I'll take this one. BCAMP does view part of our mission is to educate. And I think that's certainly something that we're just getting off the ground now, that we'll be able to reach out to organizations like the school district to let them know about the site, and hopefully offer them some information about the health impacts. And so this will not be the last meeting that we'll be having. This will be the first of many, we hope. Could the gas, and I don't know how, it's 8:50 right now, so we've got a few more questions that in here. Could the gases of concern possibly change states once they hit the cooler air outside the pipeline? Does this ever affect the quality of data?
Eric?
I think I'll handle that one. The scientist in me always wants to say never say never, right? That nothing is ever absolute. But this equipment is designed so that when atmospheric changes occur, that is compensated for. We've got weather measurements, we've got sample conditioning, we've got other techniques that are employed to ensure that the sample streams that come into this instrumentation only affect the data as minimally as possible. So, the short answer is no, but there are always instances in which unforeseen things can happen that may affect data. The great news about that is, should the data be affected, the fact that the public owns it, you'll be able to determine that by looking at the data and seeing, okay, this data was removed because of atmospheric conditions or bad sampling or instrumentation out of operational specifications. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah. The next is, will this help the city of Benicia to hold local industry and refineries accountable for any pollution they generate? Well, it should give them the information necessary. Whether it will help them do that or not, we'll have to, that's actually not our job. Our job will be the education and the information part of that. On the Airwatch Bay Area website, can you find a link for the Smell My City app? Yes, you can. Let's see. Yeah, and we just want to emphasize, the Airwatch Bay Area gives people a big overall view. Is the app able to collect health diagnosis to publish research on exposures? I don't believe we can publish health diagnosis. What we can do is publish what people are experiencing firsthand. I think in order to make any correlations with any kind of public health exposure, that's going to take a way different level of research. Let's see. One question is about that. Can the monitors be moved? Yes, these monitors can be moved. John, somebody wants to see the pugs, I think.
The pugs are sleeping. Yeah.
And then I think that may be it. Oh, wait.
There was a question about the sighting of the, I think the Air District monitor towards the bottom of the string.
I think Council Member Tom Campbell had a question whether
Oh, there is. Yeah, I'm sorry.
they're having another monitoring station on the west side of town, and as Dawn has said, it's a matter of having the funds to do it. It's a matter of public will, and we would hope so.
Yeah, I think all of us feel that the more monitors, the better. Let's see. I think that I'm still going through, but I think, so we do have the Air, congratulations, BCAMP, on this great achievement. The Air District is aware that the site is operating and look forward to connecting with the BCAMP team soon. So that was our answer about the Air District, and we did, of course, notify them about this website, about our webinar. Okay, that's all the questions in the chat.
And if anybody has any additional, just send an email. You can't get us to shut up.
Okay, so Bart.
Yeah.
think we're ready to wrap it up.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for coming tonight and to this fabulous unveiling of our the BCAMP system. Again, we're really super excited about it. I know you guys heard a lot tonight. Please email us with any more questions. I want to just mention a couple of things though about kind of summarize a couple of things. One is it truly is a sophisticated air monitoring system. I know it sounds like maybe it's obvious, but if you get a chance to think about all the different monitors and what's monitoring the gases, it's pretty impressive. And the location is really I think a great first location for a monitor in our town to help us get a handle on local emissions. It's also unbiased data. That means this data is direct. You can see it, so it's unbiased. So that's also what I like about it. It's not being tainted by a third party or being manipulated in any way. I think my personal thought about this whole system and what makes me so excited is that it will help to alert the community and keep it safe. That makes me super proud. By the way, we are an all volunteer nonprofit, and we do need volunteers to help here and there. We'd love to have you spend time with us. So, email us if you have a thought about coming and joining us. This merry band of climate people and help people, and we'd be glad to talk to you about it and see how you can help. And last but not least is we are a donation-funded organization, so we do need donations to keep this plant going. We have some money to keep it going for a while, but as time goes on, we're going to need more donations. So please, rather than first decide to make a donation, you don't need a PayPal account. Just go right there, put in your credit card information, and enter as little as $1, and that will help us with our mission. And with that, Kath, I think that's all I have to say.
Okay, since I can't do any fundraising, I'm going to up that amount. Please don't send us $1. Please send us $50 or $100.
There you go. Or more.
Or more. Okay.
Thank you all for coming. I just want to say that personally, as someone who's hoped for this since the year 2000, many of you were who are as old as I am participated in that hope, and we are delighted that this is finally launched, and looking forward to how the Air District is going to launch the other station in town and run it. So that will be the next thing. At the fire station downtown, we'll have our second station. So that's another wonderful thing to look forward to, because that means that we can triangle more information. And I just want to say, as soon as this webinar ends, I will pinch myself to try to believe it all happened, because it seems like a miracle.
Yay!
So I just want to thank our panelists for their expertise and sharing their wisdom with us, and Don for helping putting the panel together. And just thanks to everyone that attended and your great questions. And yeah, so like Kathy said, stay tuned. I mean, we are an educational organization, and we want to have other meetings where we can talk about air quality related topics.
And if you see the board out and about, buy them a beer. Please. Not all at once. But,
Or bourbon and ginger ale.
oh, there you go.
All right.
So I guess that's the official end of the webinar.
Yes.